I remember we were talking the other day about how much trust we end up putting into diabetes tech. And honestly, it's kind of a lot when you really stop to think about it.
It's actually a little bit terrifying to think that like your child's life in a sense is in the hands of technology that you can't always control.
Welcome to Raising Type 1, a podcast for parents navigating life with type 1 diabetes.
Honest conversations, shared experiences, and reminders that you don't have to do this alone. He's 50.
I'm assuming it's accurate.
Well, he was 67 when it said he was like 68, I think it said.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So unless it's just like overshooting, and it may be. Earlier today it said he was 58 and he was 78. So
that was happening to us yesterday.
Yeah, just like overshoots. It sees the drop and it overshoots. Or vice versa. It sees the rise and it overshoots the rise, I feel like.
I feel like it goes one of two ways, because either it completely overshoots and you poke and they're like way below what Dexcom is reading, or it like crazy undershoots and you're like, oh wow, they're like in range. We've had a great day so far. And then you like finally poke for some reason, just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For some reason. And then they're like, 170.
Yep. When Wells got a Dexcom, because I think now most kids are like leaving the hospital with a Dexcom,
which is crazy. Like, I wish that was the case.
Yeah, and I'm so glad. But I remember we got sent home from the hospital on a Friday and they were like, yeah, you'll have an appointment at the endocrinologist on Monday and you'll get a Dexcom. And I was so excited about it. And I'm still like, I don't want anybody to twist it. Like, I'm very, very, very thankful for Dexcom. But I definitely thought it was like the end of all finger pokes kind of thing.
Well, that's kind of what they advertise it as.
Yeah, I think
Call me crazy. The G7 literally states that, or something very similar to that
in a commercial.
In a commercial, and they're advertising that you basically don't have to finger poke.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it says something along those lines. And that's certainly not been our experience. But when we first got the Dexcom, though, we did stop finger poking. Mm-hmm. And honestly, like, we still finger poked from time to time. But really what got us back into finger poking was getting Ducky, Wells' diabetic alert dog. Because the protocol for MD dogs, the program that he comes from, is that you confirm alerts with a finger poke. And it wasn't until that experience that it was like really in my face how frequently wrong the Dexcom is. And it's just like, it's terrifying too, especially because both of our boys are on an AID system, an automated insulin delivery system that is directly using the Dexcom readings to make decisions on insulin delivery, whether it's going to increase, decrease, give a correction bolus, whatever. And so like, that is terrifying when you think about it from the perspective of one wrong reading could really be like, it could really cause a big problem.
Well, yeah, especially because, Wells is still a lot more insulin sensitive than Paxton is, but like they're still both young. They're small. Yeah. They don't use a whole lot of insulin other than breakfast. Breakfast is a different beast. But yeah, it's just insane to me because like, and I feel like that's too why both of us decide to leave the boys in sleep mode on the Tandem Mobi, because then it takes away the ability for it to auto bolus. Yeah. And I feel like personally we've noticed a lot less of an impact when it incorrectly adjusts basal versus, giving him a 0.5 or greater correction that could really just screw things up.
Yeah, for us, the difference has been that with auto mode and auto boluses, we would see a lot sharper of a drop if he was going to go low, and with sleep mode, we see a much more slow decline. Like, if he's going to go low, it's not like a plummet. It's like a much slower, you know what I mean? And so we're able to kind of stop it before it gets to that point. Most of the time, like, obviously there are situations where that's not the case, but for the most part, I feel like we're able to, control it a little bit better in sleep mode because it's not giving those big auto boluses. But still, like, there was a situation just, I think 2 weeks ago now, where Wells had been like teetering high all night, like just kind of at the high end of our range. Like, I think like 130, 140. I think maybe he had like gotten to like 150. And I had upped my high alarm. I usually have my high alarm set to 140. I was just like exhausted. I hadn't slept the night before. So I had upped my high alarm because I was like, whatever, if he's coasting at like 150 all night, I really don't care at this point. Like, his sleep and my sleep take priority. I think I had set it to 150 was what I had increased it to. And I woke up at like, I don't know, 6 a.m. I'm pretty sure it was, to my high alarm going off over and over again. And I looked and it said like 160. I think it said 160 and steady. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is so weird that he's like not come down. And so I had my husband go poke his finger. He was 212.
I remember that.
212. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but there is a massive difference between a treatment decision for like 150 or 160 and steady and 212. Like 212 is a whole problem for me.
Yeah.
And it changes the way I want to think about things. I'm okay with him coasting all night at like 150 if that's just like the kind of night we're having, or it's been a rough week or whatever. But I am certainly going to do something about a blood sugar of 212, and his pump didn't increase his insulin properly because it didn't know he was 212 because the Dexcom was saying he was like 160.
Yeah. And before anyone comes for us, we totally understand that technology has, what's the word I'm looking for? Allowances for how off it's allowed to be, what's, you know what I mean? Before it gets past like an acceptable threshold. Mm-hmm. But like, I feel like even if you look up, and I think we looked up the graph on Dexcom's website the other day because we were curious. We were having a rough day with readings and Dexcom not matching up. And I was like, I just want to look, like, just for and giggles.
Yeah.
And I pulled up this like comparison table where they say, okay, like in the middle is if you finger poke at this, number, this is the acceptable range for it to be below, and this is the acceptable range for it to be high.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that a finger poke of 160, 212 was not within the acceptable range.
Yeah, because what is it? 20? It's 20%, right?
20%. No. Yes, it's 20% if you're over 80.
Okay.
And if it's below 80, you have to be within 20 points.
Which is also crazy because there's a big difference between 60 and 80. Like,
there's a big difference between 60 and 40.
Yeah.
Like 60, I'm going to bump with a couple carbs. 40, I'm probably going to double that carb.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to double whatever carb count.
What's 20% of 160? So 20% of 160 is 32. Wait, right?
Yeah, so you would add that. So it'd be 192.
Right. Yeah.
So that would be the acceptable highest it could
mm-hmm.
it could read while it's still being within that allowance.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating. And like I don't know. I love the Dexcom G6. Like, it worked really well for us for years, and I find it to be way better. Like, I find with the G7 it like overshoots, like we were saying, in both directions. Like, if he's 70, it's reading that he's 50, or if he's 160, sometimes it's reading that he's 200. Like, it's so sensitive to the like rises and falling. I feel like that's what I feel like we see.
And don't get me wrong, like, we definitely had, our sporadic issues with the G6 too. If you had like a bum sensor or like, sometimes, it would overshoot or whatnot. But like, I'm also so impartial to the G6. Like, we didn't come home from the hospital, but like, he's been on the G6 since diagnosis until we literally, when we switched to the Mobi in October of 2024, everyone was raving about the G7. So I'm like, fine, cool. Like, I want the 30-minute warm-up time. I want less adhesive on his skin. Like, I want to try it. And then after like a month and a half, I was like, no, sorry, it's not doing it for me. And we went right back to that G6.
Yeah. So when we came home from the hospital, the G7 had just come out. Like, I think literally it had been out like a month maybe or something.
Wow.
And so that's what we got. We got the G7 right off of the bat. And we used that for the whole amount of time that he wasn't on an insulin pump. So I think it was like 3 months when he was MDI that we used the G7. And again, like, we weren't finger poking. Like, we were told like we don't need really to anymore. And so I think we rarely did. And when he got the Omnipod wasn't compatible yet with the G7.
Yes.
And so it forced us to go to the G6. And so we started that. We were fine with that. It worked great. I didn't like the 2-hour warm-up time, but that was my only like real qualm about it.
Yeah.
And then it was like bigger, and he didn't like the insertion. Like, it hurt more. And so then when we went to the Mobi from the Omnipod, we went back to the G7 because I was like, oh, slay, we can go back to the G7 now. And I just feel like it had changed. I don't know if we were finger poking more or if something changed, but it just like didn't feel the same as the first time, like the first round of us using it. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't stand this. And now he's on the Mobi, and like we were saying, the Mobi can give automated corrections, and that is exactly what I was seeing. Like, it would give one sporadic reading, and it's dosing him, this huge correction because it thinks he's rising rapidly when he's really not. And so I very quickly learned that we had to use the Mobi in sleep mode if we were going to use the G7. And then eventually I just went back to the G6 because I was so sick of the crazy inaccuracies with G7 at that time for whatever reason. So we went back to the G6 for like a year and a half and have just now switched back to the G7 because they're discontinuing the G6. So I kind of feel like my hand is forced in a way to just like accept my fate because I don't get a whole lot of choice in it.
I know. It's so sad. We're going to have like a funeral for our last Dexcom G6 transmitters. Gives them a Vikings funeral and just ship them off to sea. We'll just take a trip to the beach and just put them out to sea.
I'm going to hoard those bitches in my closet.
Oh my God. We should make like a little scrapbook, like a little
last Dexcom transmitter
ever, last G6 transmitter ever. Rip. I
will give some credit to the G7. This time around has been better than the last time. Like the time that we were on it when we first started the Mobi was, in my opinion, the G7 at its worst. I don't know why. I'm not sure like what they've changed. I know they've changed the adhesive and I think they've changed or like worked on some other things on it.
I think it was the coating that was put onto the probe wire that goes in the skin. I think Dexcom had kind of cheaped out and gone with a different manufacturer, and that coating that was on the probe was causing inaccurate readings.
Oh yeah.
And so when they switched back to the regular manufacturer
themselves, right? They went back to Dexcom.
Yes.
I think I may be wrong.
I'm not well versed enough to speak on this too a whole lot, but I think that was the issue. But I think now like people are saying that it's a lot better, but I don't know. Like I'm still out.
I feel the same way. I don't think it's not G6 level by any means. Like we had way more accurate readings with the G6. The G6 was like, I could poke his finger one time a day. If it was accurate, I didn't feel like I ever had to poke again that day.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I could trust it from then on. If I am ever doubting the G7, I poke. I think we poke Wells' finger probably 10 times a day or more.
Yeah.
Partially because of Ducky, but also just like because I don't trust it at all enough to make a treatment decision. If I'm going to make a treatment decision, I'm going to poke his finger.
Yeah, I think that's the point we're at too, and we don't even have a diabetic alert dog yet. But it's like the blind trust that I was willing to put into the G6 was amazing versus the G7. It's like, so like for example with the G6, like you could very quickly tell like what was a compression low or what was, you know what I mean? Like you could tell when that was off. Versus the G7 has always been so jumpy for us. I can't tell if it's a compression low or not. I've got to poke. Like I cannot decipher between the two because that G7 graph is so much jumpier than a G6 graph.
Yeah, I feel like when Wells was steady, like when his blood sugars were steady on the G6, we would see the same readings over and over again. You know, 105, 105, 105, 106, 107, 104. Like it was this very like steady flowing, like the numbers made sense. Like, okay, he's about 105 and steady, and sometimes he's 103 and sometimes he's 107, but he's staying in this like range that makes sense for him to be steady. With the G7, I feel like it's like 110, 99, 107, 116, like
86,
86, 93. And it's like, well, is he rising or falling?
Couldn't tell you.
Right.
And I don't think it could tell you either.
And I think it causes more blood sugar unsteadiness because the Mobi also is like, well, what is he? Well, is he rising or falling? Are we suspending basal or are we increasing it?
Yeah.
It doesn't really know that pattern, and neither do I.
I mean,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
I couldn't tell you either.
What do you feel like you thought, like, we'll say technology in general, like diabetes technology in general, not just Dexcom, but like insulin pump, Dexcom, etc. Diabetes technology, what do you feel like you thought it would fix when you first started using it?
I think the post-diagnosis naivety figured that it would make type 1 a lot more hands-off. I never thought that it was going to be like completely hands-off, like set it and forget it. Like, you know what I mean? You figure out their settings and they're good to go, other than maybe like when they get sick, or you know what I mean? Like other than that, I was just like, oh, this is going to make life a lot easier. And to some degree, yeah, that's absolutely true. Like you couldn't catch me doing MDI these days, and that's just our personal preference.
Yeah.
But I think I thought it would make a lot of things a lot easier, and I thought it was going to be a lot more hands off. And it's to some degree, I think, quite the opposite. Because when you introduce a pump, you now have introduced the ability to tinker with a lot more things than you can with MDI.
Yeah.
And that can, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, diabetes and insulin delivery and all that stuff, it's all a domino effect. So you make one wrong change and it could affect 15 other things. And now you've got to decipher between those now 16 things that are going wrong.
Yeah.
Which one of it was the one that caused the issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of levers that you can pull with an insulin pump versus MDI, where you kind of have like 3 basic things. You have a basal that's just one basal amount per day per 24 hours.
Yep.
You have probably 3 insulin to carb ratios, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then your correction factor that is probably like one thing all day and one thing for nighttime.
Yeah.
Or you don't correct at night. That was our experience anyways, like of kind of like what the levers we could turn were.
Yeah.
And with a pump, it's like the opportunities are endless.
The world is your oyster.
The world is your oyster. If you want to have a different basal rate every hour of the day, like
every 30 minutes of the day, really.
Yeah.
Like you could really just dive deep.
Yeah, you could literally do anything. You want to have 16 different carb ratios? Yeah, sure, go for it. Like you can really, and sometimes I think like it's easy to go off the deep end of like analyzing data to change things. And I know I'm so bad about this. I change settings on Wells pump probably like every single day because I see one little thing go wrong and I'm like, oh, I'm going to tweak this. I'm going to tweak that. Oh, he went high today after lunch. Well, I'm going to just go ahead and change his ratio. But it's very easy to do that when it's just a pump. Like it's not, I don't have to give him an extra injection. I don't have to like, he's relatively unaffected by me toggling those switches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, like, I think it's really important for us to chat a little bit about all the benefits of technology. I mean, I know we just went on for like 15 minutes about hating Dexcom.
I think we both just had a day too. It's just been
yeah, it has. We both kind of had like a rough couple of days. We say that every episode.
We really do. I promise we know what we're doing, guys.
I'm also like, honestly, I'm PMSing. And so diabetes just always affects me more this time of the month. Like it just really gets under my skin when I'm already hormonally vulnerable.
We're just going through it.
I'm already pissed off. So the easiest thing to be pissed off at is
always
diabetes. Yeah.
Always diabetes. That'd be the first thing I blame.
Yeah. But I am so thankful. Like I truly am for Dexcom, for an insulin pump. Like people love to make the comment on social media, especially like, oh, these kids, you know, like have it so easy now. We didn't have all this technology when I was a kid and I was a type 1 diabetic. And I'm fully aware that is true. And I'll go on a tangent about that in a second. But like, I really am thankful. When Wells came home from the hospital, there was like 2 days or 2 nights where we didn't have a Dexcom. And I was so scared to put him in his own room that I made him sleep in our bed because I was like, how am I supposed to know if he has a seizure in his sleep? Like, how will I know if he is low if he's not even in bed with me?
Yeah.
So I am thankful for the technology. I'm thankful to not have to give him a shot every time he needs, you know, insulin. Like it's very easy to give simple corrections. It's so nice to be able to give small amounts of insulin, like less than half a unit, because Wells very frequently uses less than half a unit. I love being able to extend bolus. Like there are so many benefits to all the technology. But what I was going to say is I wrote a post that I posted on Facebook a couple weeks ago that's very prevalent to this conversation about technology. So I'm going to read it because it's just like kind of exactly what we're talking about. And I'm honestly not just like, I think I like summed it up. I was like in my feels about technology that specific night because we'd had to change Wells' site and it was like a whole drama thing. And I was just feeling emotional about it. But in quotes, diabetes technology is a privilege, end quote. I hear that a lot, and I want to say first and foremost that I agree. We're incredibly blessed to live in a time of insulin pumps and CGMs, to have access to tools like the Dexcom and the AID systems. I know there was a generation of diabetics who survived on finger sticks, urine strips, rigid schedules, and a whole lot of grit, and I don't take that lightly ever. This technology is a gift. It saves lives. It gives us data. It gives us sleep. It gives our children safer numbers. But here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. My 5-year-old doesn't know that it's a privilege. To him, it's not cutting edge medical advancement. It's a loud device that beeps when he just wants to play It's a sharp needle that goes in his arm every 2 days that makes his little body tense up before we even open the package. It's tape pulled off of sensitive skin. It's bracing himself. It's crying, saying it hurts so much. He doesn't feel privileged. He feels scared. And both things can be true at the same time. We can be overwhelmingly grateful for technology while still acknowledging that it's heavy for a child to carry. Yes, we're fortunate to have tools that older generations didn't. Yes, they are life-saving. Yes, they are a blessing. But they also are a constant reminder that his body needs help to do something other bodies can just do. Technology is a privilege, and it's also a burden. And one day, maybe he'll understand how lucky he is to have it. But right now, he's just 5. It just sums up my emotions on how I feel about technology. I'm very eternally grateful to the technology that makes diabetes easier. And I'm not blind to the fact that it makes diabetes easier, but it doesn't make diabetes easy.
No. And I think too, there's something to be said for the fact that we are able to express gratitude for that technology, but our boys aren't yet. I remember someone telling me one time that this is as basic as technology will ever be. It will always get better from here. So it's they're going to look back and they're going to be saying the same stuff to, you know what I mean, kids that are diagnosed when they're, let's say 40 or 50, and they're like, oh, well, back when we were kids, we only had Dexcom G6s and we only had insulin pumps that only gave insulin, maybe not glucagon. You know what I mean? It's all of that stuff is so constantly changing. But I think for people to sit there and invalidate a child's feelings about it when they are not able to comprehend that it is a privilege, that it is a blessing, I think it's really unfair for adults that have been living with type 1 since they were kids to kind of sit there and point fingers at these kids who are quote unquote ungrateful for technology being a blessing. They'll understand it someday, but right now it's to them, it's ruining their childhood. And I don't blame them for thinking that way.
Yeah. And also I think too, it's for us as parents too. We are given more with technology and the ability to keep them safe, but it also is more things to manage.
Yeah.
And to keep up with and to fight for or with. For example, or thinking back to, people that they did used to just poke their finger a couple times a day and take an insulin shot when they ate. And that was the only thought that was not the only thought that was given, but that was kind of the extent of the management.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it was easier. That's not what I'm implying. I'm just saying now that there is all this technology, it is more to manage.
And it's always in your face.
Yes. And it's always in your face. So there's pros and cons to, it's to both sides of the coin, that it's a blessing and sometimes a curse.
I love how we were supposed to be talking about the positives. Not us being just negative bitches. All right, cool. Let's try to refocus here. It's literally just going to be 2 hours of on everything.
I fear the whole point of us having that part of the conversation was to talk about the benefits of technology.
We're gonna refocus, guys. Please hold it.
We're gonna say something good about diabetes technology. Give us just a second. Now you say something nice about Dexcom.
Let's go around the circle.
Let's go around the circle. Everybody say something nice about Dexcom.
All right, so let's refocus, rein it in, get back to the positives. Tell me about some of the times that CGM alerts saved you from a scary low.
I mean, there's plenty of times. There are plenty of times that seeing the trend is so beneficial. And I think it saves us a lot of lows. I think if I didn't have that data, he would spend a lot more time low, because I can say, oh, he just went from, 100 to 80 and dropping. That's a 20 number drop. He might be 80 right now, or I poke his finger and he's 70. But if I didn't have that data, what would he have gotten to before I realized? So I think I all the time. And obviously we have a diabetic alert dog that plays a huge role in our prevention of lows, but obviously there are times where Ducky isn't with us or isn't around Wells, or Wells is going to go to school one day, and the CGM is what we rely on. And even if it's not always 100% accurate, usually the trends are pretty indicative of what's happening most of the time. So having that is a huge benefit to us, but it's just, don't say anything negative.
Catch yourself.
Stop.
Positives. Think happy thoughts.
So it's a huge benefit to have those trends available. And I think that is really where, to me, the Dexcom shines in our management of being able to have that trend of data, not necessarily the stagnant number, but the trend.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think the trends are huge, especially for us, since we obviously don't have a diabetic alert dog yet. So we're kind of truly just relying on Dexcom trends and finger pokes. So I think, even if that trend isn't necessarily accurate or it's less intense or more intense than what Dexcom is reading, it still gives us some semblance of an idea of where to start. Like, hey, this is looking a little bit off. Maybe I should just poke and figure out what he actually is.
Yeah.
And that, you know what I mean? Doing that gives us more information, obviously, because then it tells us how accurate the Dexcom actually is reading. So it's like you said, positives. It is beneficial. It is, even though it's very frustrating. Nope. Positives.
I know. It's hard.
I fear we're going to be checking ourselves this whole episode.
Yeah. And it's not that we're like anti-technology. Like that probably sounds like what this is like, but we're not. We use it.
We're just realistic.
I mean, I don't ever let Wells go without a Dexcom.
Oh, absolutely not.
It is just like another, and I think it's just another weight to carry as type 1 parents of, like I said, like it's another thing to manage. Is the Dexcom right? Is it, if it's not, well, I need to fix it so that his pump can work appropriately, or his blood sugar is high and it's not coming down. Is it the pump site? Like it's all another variable.
Yeah. And two, I wanted to add, I think a CGM is invaluable for kids like ours who are hypo and hyper unaware. Because even if they asked for a CGM break or something like that, I don't know that I would be able to allow that, because I would want that peace of mind of at least them knowing a little bit of what a low feels like or what a high feels like, so that they could tell me. Otherwise, you better catch me with that freaking glucometer chasing him around the house every 20 minutes to check that blood sugar, because he could be 39 and running around here like he's freaking 90 and steady.
Yeah, Wells too. He's been 30 before and had no symptoms. None.
Yeah.
And so that's terrifying. And like also he's had a high blood sugar and large ketones before with no symptoms. I mean, hell, when he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and his blood sugar was 600, he wasn't even in DKA and he barely had symptoms, because these little kids just don't show it easily, I feel like.
No, and they're not like in tune enough with their bodies yet to be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
But also I don't know. I feel like that's also kind of like a blessing in disguise to some degree, because, and we talked about this last episode, like the guilt that we carry as parents for having to cause these, like, you know what I mean, lows or highs on our kids from the decisions that we're making with the information that we have, you know what I mean, at the moment. And so I think like knowing that they don't feel most of those lows and highs makes me feel just the slightest bit better.
Yeah.
Because if like Pax was feeling every one of the lows and highs that like I caused from my decision making, I fear I would probably have to check myself into a mental institution.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. Like I already feel guilty.
Yeah.
Enough.
Just slightly, yeah.
And so that would make it worse. And honestly would probably be something that would make me consider raising our target range. Like right now we have it set that like I'd like him to stay under 140. If he was feeling low constantly, it would make me reconsider what I was prioritizing. Like if he was feeling like all the time because he was going low all the time, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I completely agree actually, because I forget who I talked to about this, but like I believe both of us keep about the same target range. Like we both want to see the boys in between 70 and 140.
Yeah.
And so I find that like even when Paxton spends like an hour or two at like 150 or 160, like he's thirsty, he's tired, he doesn't like feel good, he doesn't have ketones or anything, it's just he's not used to spending that much time above 140. And so it's like I want to do everything in my power to, you know what I mean, keep that range as tight as possible so that he's feeling his best.
Yeah, Wells started baseball back this week, and I didn't forget, but I kind of thought it was a fluke last season that he was going high every time before baseball practice and games last season, and he is doing it again this season. So I think it's just like adrenaline and stuff. But obviously it's like a new thing to navigate because I need to preemptively give insulin for something that he's not consuming. Like it's very much a mental block for me to be like, okay, I know he's going to spike from adrenaline. I need to give insulin for it. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, what if he doesn't spike? Like, what if today's the day that he doesn't have that adrenaline spike and I've given this correction for this hypothetical high that's going to happen that I don't have any way of like confirming that it's going to happen. But regardless, the first 2 practices, he spiked to 250 both times. Absurdly high blood sugar for him. Like 150 is a high blood sugar for him. 160 is a high. So 250, 230, 250, like plus the activity from baseball, he was feeling horrible. He was having headaches. Like he was very tired. He just felt crappy, thirsty. Like I just felt awful. Even the next day, like I could tell he was still having effects from that. Like he was still hard to wake up in the morning. Like he was really tired and stuff like that. So yeah, I wouldn't do great if he was feeling like, we don't ever spend time that high, but I would feel bad if he was constantly having to feel that way.
Yeah. All right. I think that's enough positivity. I think we can side back on the negatives.
I was going to ask you, do you have any like stories of like technology majorly failing y'all?
Majorly failing us. I got to narrow it down here.
Which one do I want to talk about?
We don't have that long. Like this can't be a 4-hour episode. I'm trying to think of like one that like stands out to me the most. Honestly, I want to say like we had the most like tech issues when we were on Omnipod.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is something I'm grateful for with Tandem, at least. Like, it tends to catch like occlusions and that type of stuff. Yeah. Even though I'm kind of out on that as well from personal experience. We had to send a pump back due to constant occlusions. And then the pump saying that he got this much insulin, but then like I never knew how much he actually got, because if I would give him the remainder of what it said he didn't get, he would go low. If I gave him less than that, he would go high. So I'm like, well, where are we actually? Yeah. Where are we sitting here? So we did end up, our pump shit the bed, and we, Tandem replaced it, and everything is great. And we haven't really had the same issue since, other than like occlusions that have reasons as to why they happened. Yeah. But I think on Omnipod, like I think of this like specific instance, which is probably the closest we've gotten to his first experience with DKA since he was diagnosed with type 1, and he was not in DKA when he was diagnosed with type 1. But I remember it was when we were on the Omnipod, and he was having like a really rough blood sugar night, but like with the Omnipod, that really wasn't uncommon for him. Like it just, the Omnipod, the algorithm wasn't the greatest for him. And so he tended to run a bit higher than what we would have preferred. And I was naive and, let the pump do the work. That's what it's there for. And, the pump will bring him down. And, sometimes it did. And a lot of the times it didn't. So there was one night that I remember he had a really sticky high, and I was like giving him corrections, but I wasn't as aggressive as I am nowadays. So, I didn't think much of it. I'm just like, just give him more insulin. Like I'm just giving him too small of corrections or whatever. And so he woke up the next morning and he was fine. But then I remember we were going to Home Depot to pick up like project supplies for something we were doing around the house. And we were on the way there, and he just starts complaining that like he doesn't feel good. He feels like he's going to puke. He's got like this raging headache. And I'm like, what the f-? And I'm like, we have to go home. Like we can't. Yeah. Cause I started to get scared. I was like, I wonder if his pod is failing, because the Omnipod controller didn't say anything. It didn't say that the pod had failed. It, you know what I mean? Said that everything was going fine. And we get home and we take it out, and I can't remember if the cannula was kinked or if it was like clogged or something. But anyways, we checked his blood sugar, and it was like way higher than Dexcom was rating. So there you go. There's your first problem, is that the pump doesn't even have the right information. Not that it would have corrected him enough regardless, but Dexcom was wrong. And then, the pump obviously wasn't giving him insulin, and we checked ketones, and his ketones were probably like 3 or 4. Yeah. And he's never to this day had ketones that high before, but like it was like heartbreaking. And he honestly, we came home, this was at like 10 in the morning. We came home, we gave him a huge manual injection, put a new pod on him, and that kid slept for like 12 hours straight. And it just like broke my heart, because you could tell like even for the next couple days, like he just did not feel good. And luckily we were able to flush his ketones within a few hours with like fluids and obviously the giant correction bolus and everything like that. But it's just like, that was probably the closest that we've come to DKA since he was diagnosed. And it's not great. It's not great.
We had a similar experience with the Omnipod where the cannula just didn't go into his skin, but it was like very soon after we started the Omnipod and his numbers were still totally uncontrolled. Like we started the Omnipod 3 months after he was diagnosed. So him being high, Dexcom reading HIGH was not uncommon at that point.
Same with us.
And so I remember, I actually think I made a video on it, but the Dexcom just read high and I poked his finger and he was like 500 and something. And my stupid ass was like, I'm just going to keep giving corrections. Like I didn't even think, I was new to the pump. I didn't even think about the possibility of the cannula not being in his skin, you know, the right way.
I think like when you're that early on in diagnosis, like you don't think about the fact that technology can fail you. Like it's not your first thought because you're taught to rely on this technology, and to some degree you do. Yes, it, like you said, it absolutely makes life easier, but like that thought of like finger poking to check a Dexcom reading, or like, you know what I mean, oh shoot, maybe this cannula isn't even in his skin, maybe the pump isn't giving him the amount of insulin it should give him. Like those are thoughts that never cross your mind.
And like I wish it was something that was maybe taught by our endocrinologist, because we were definitely given like a sick day protocol on like checking ketones and stuff like that. Or like, you know, if their blood sugar is over 300 for X amount of hours, like check ketones. But just not that long ago, it had to have been within the last 6 months. And we love our Tandem Mobi and we don't have issues like this very frequently. But I had dosed Wells for breakfast with like the original infusion site, like the original site was on. And then I changed his site. It was due to be changed. And then we left the house to go to like an appointment for one of my other kids, and his blood sugar was good starting out. And then while we were at the appointment, it like slowly rose like 130, 150, I think it was like 160 by the time we finally got home. But I had like been giving corrections and it was this high that just like didn't really make sense. And again, we keep a tight range. Like we keep like this, like tried to keep it under 140. And so it didn't really make sense, especially this time of day, why he was slowly rising like he was. And so the first thing that popped into my mind was, oh, I know I changed his site this morning. What if he's not getting insulin? Let me check his ketones. They were almost 5.0 blood ketones, and they were rising like quick. And so I pulled off the site, and sure enough, the cannula was bent. It was bent in half. He wasn't getting any insulin, hadn't gotten insulin in like 4 hours. But if I had waited until he was over 300 to check for ketones, he would have been in DKA.
Yeah. Or also be thankful for the fact that you dosed him for breakfast with your old site, because if you didn't, that probably could have been DKA by the time that you got home and realized it. Yeah.
And Wells just seems to have ketones like kind of all the time. He just has like a baseline ketone level that's higher, I think, than most people. I don't know if it's because he eats so low carb because of his CSID.
True.
That's the only thing I can like kind of figure out, that maybe it's just because he doesn't frequently get a lot of insulin, and he still uses like honestly like 6 or 7 units of insulin in a whole day, but he does just kind of have this baseline level of like usually like 1.0 blood ketones, which for most people are like borderline moderate ketones, but he just kind of stays there all the time. It makes it, I think that his ketones go up a lot quicker when there is a problem with a site or whatever, because he's already sitting kind of like more elevated. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That reminds me of the last site failure we had that was a few weeks ago. And it just happened to be like the perfect storm. I had to leave the house one evening to go coach youth soccer, which is what I do in my little free time that I have. And I had forgotten to fill Pax's insulin cartridge before I left the house, and he had only had like 5 units left. And I left, I went to go coach, and my husband Tyler calls me and he's like, hey, I thought you filled his cartridge earlier. And I was like, oh. And I was like, no, like I forgot. So that was kind of an issue, but we got that all figured out. They had gotten Panera for dinner that night. And luckily, like, Paxton needed less than 5 units for the Panera, but my husband wasn't sure if he was able to get all that. Plus, we all know kind of how that last couple units in a cartridge works.
Yeah.
So anyways, like the site was changed, the insulin was refreshed, everything was fine. He was still high. He like spiked after dinner, so that's kind of what like made us think like, oh shoot, like maybe he didn't actually get his whole dinner bolus, or maybe I just missed the carb count. Like, you know what I mean? Like, very much a possibility. It's air quotes fast food, so you never know really what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So I come home and I am like, okay, like I'm gonna give him like a decent sized correction with the pump, and put him to bed, and everything should be fine. You know what I mean? Like, this correction should bring him down. And honestly, I was prepared to catch a low at that point.
Yeah.
So then a few hours go by, and I've given multiple corrections, and we're keeping him up way past his bedtime at this point, because I feel bad that I'm constantly having to poke his finger to check and all this other stuff. I've checked ketones at this point probably multiple times, and they've been at 0.2, which is Pax's baseline. And I'm like, well, it doesn't make sense. Like, this high is so sticky. I've given him probably like 7 or 8 units in corrections at this point. And sometimes we do have sticky highs like that. So it's like, I'm not so fast to pull off a site as soon as there's a high blood sugar. Like, I use kind of ketones as our make or break decision on whether or not to change a site. Yep. So he still had no elevated ketones. And at this point, I think it's like midnight. And I'm like, I'd stepped away to take a shower because I was so frustrated. I was like, I just need to clear my mind. Took like a 20-minute shower, came back out. I was like, I feel like I need to check his ketones again. And I checked them, and they were finally elevated to 0.7. And it's like, if his body would have produced those ketones faster, I would have pulled that site hours ago. Yeah. I pulled that site off, and it was bent completely 90 degrees. So he, whatever insulin he got for dinner, whether it be enough, whether it not be enough, that was the last insulin he got.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I caught it when his ketones were only at 0.7. Yeah. And you know what I mean? Popped a new site on him and gave him a very large correction, because I was making up for all of the basal that he had missed and all of the other corrections that I, was giving. And after I gave that correction, I was very prepared to treat some lows. And then we did for, 2 hours. But at that point, I was glad to be treating lows instead of highs. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just crazy.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. It's fatiguing, I guess.
Yeah.
It's I keep saying a blessing and a curse, but it really is. Like, there's this humongous pro to having technology. An automated insulin delivery system is incredible technology. It's a beautiful thing. It's so amazing not to have to poke your child nonstop. But then, like, these things happen, and I think people look at it, especially people that are not, a direct line to a type 1 diabetic. Like, it's not in their face. They're not seeing it. And they think, actually, I remember not long after Wells got his insulin pump, I was complaining to my dad about something with Wells' blood sugar. And my dad was like, I thought he's on an insulin pump now. Like, I thought that was supposed to stop all this from happening. And like, I really do think people think that that's what happens. Like, you get an insulin pump and the technology handles it for you.
Yeah.
And it's very much not that, like, obviously, just aside from diabetes being diabetes and being unpredictable and uncontrollable for the most part, there's a whole side of that diabetes is its own thing. And then technology cooperating is also a whole other thing. Like, you have to trust a Dexcom or like verify constantly if you don't trust it. And you have to like make sure a pump is working appropriately, make sure the settings are correct in it, make sure that like, oh, if they're high, like, let's check ketones, let's make sure it's not a site issue. Is the pump charged? Is it connected to the phone? Is the CGM connected to the pump? It's a whole other realm of management and things to keep up with that. Yes, it's amazing to have the technology, but it is like another kind of level of oversight that you have to have with diabetes management. That is where we're going to pause for today. Diabetes technology has come so far, and there's no question that it has saved lives and changed the way families manage this disease. But as we've talked about today, it's not perfect. There are gaps, frustrations, and moments where the technology we rely on doesn't quite live up to the weight we place on it. In part 2, we're going to dive deeper into that side of things, the reality of trusting technology with your child's life, the emotional side of it, and why some families like ours choose to add another layer of support beyond the devices. So if you've ever felt grateful for diabetes technology while also feeling frustrated or unsure about it, you're definitely not alone. Make sure you come back for part 2 where we'll keep this conversation going.